Ladies and gentlemen, gather round as we take a comical journey into the world of Reform UK, a party that desperately wants you to forget it was once known as the Brexit Party. It's like a magician trying to distract you with a disappearing act, while they're wearing a neon sign that says, "I used to the Brexit Party." Reform UK, the political tribute cover band of our times. They've taken a page from the How to Rebrand a Party handbook and decided to mix and match like they're dressing up in their parents' old clothes. Picture this. It's like taking the best bits of New Labour, giving them a good shake, and adding a dash of reheated Thatcherism for that extra nostalgic kick. I mean, come on, Reform UK's transformation is a bit like a chameleon trying to blend into a disco ball. They've gone from being all about Brexit to suddenly wanting to reform everything under the sun. It's as if they realized that just shouting Brexit from the rooftops wasn't enough, so they decided to throw in some political jazz hands for good measure. And let's not forget their leader, who's about as charismatic as a damp sock. Nigel Farage, the man who led the Brexit charge, is now leading the charge for Reform UK. It's like watching a sequel to a movie you never asked for, with the same actor in a different costume. Reform UK's message is clear. We're not like those other parties, but we're also not entirely sure what we are. They want to be the party of change, but it feels more like a party that's desperately clinging to the past, like your dad trying to relive his glory days on the dance floor. Nigel Farage, the man who was once the fireface of the Brexit Party, has declared that he's retired from politics. He's passed the torch to Richard Tice, the most boring school teacher you could ever imagine. It's as if Farage decided he'd had enough of the political limelight and decided to fade into the background, but not before handing over the reins to someone who could put an insomniac to sleep faster than lullaby. Richard Tice, the leader of Reform UK, is like the substitute teacher who's called in when the regular teacher is sick. He's the kind of guy who could turn a thrilling game of Monopoly into a lesson on property tax reform. I can almost hear him now, droning on about fiscal responsibility and the joys of balanced budgets. It's a remarkable transition from Farage's charismatic, often controversial persona to Tice's bland and unexciting demeanor. It's like going from a rock concert to a library, from fireworks to a damp squib. And let's not forget the iron here. Farage, the man who was once the driving force behind Brexit, has now stepped aside just as the UK is grappling with the complexities and challenges of actually implementing it. It's like he said, "I'll take the glory, but someone else can deal with the messy bits." Richard Tice, the master of buzzwords and the maestro of monotony. It's as if every time he steps up to the podium, his script has been freshly xeroxed from a mass-market machine of popular catchphrases. Yet, somehow, he manages to achieve the remarkable feat of being both mind-numbingly boring and annoying. Picture this. Tice starts his speech, and it's like he's playing a game of political buzzword bingo. He rattles off phrases like economic prosperity, fiscal responsibility, and efficiency-driven solutions, as if they were the magic incantations to cure insomnia. It's like listening to elevator music while being stuck in an elevator that never reaches your floor. And let's not forget his tone. It's as if he's on a mission to make you question your life choices. You find yourself yearning for the excitement of watching paint dry or the thrill of counting grains of sand on a beach. But what's truly remarkable is how he manages to be annoying in the process. It's like having a fly buzzing around your head while you're trying to enjoy a picnic. You can't ignore it, but you also can't stand it. Tice's speeches have that unique ability to make you want to both doze off and pull your hair out at the same time. Oh, the hilarity never ends with Richard Tice, does it? Resorting to name-calling like "consocialists" is like watching a 7-year-old trying to play tough in the schoolyard, demanding lunch money with a pretend scowl on their face. It's the political equivalent of sticking out your tongue and saying, "Nah, you're a big mean." Calling conservatives consocialists is like trying to come up with a clever insult, but falling flat on your face. It's as if Tice raided the Playground Insults Handbook for inspiration and thought, "This will real get em." In reality, it just makes him sound like he's grasping at straws, desperate trying to come up with a catchy label to discredit his political opponents. It's the kind of name-calling that might work on the schoolyard, but falls flat in the world of grown-up politics. Yes, let's take a trip down memory lane and examine the so-called policies of Reform UK, which seem to be nothing more than reheated, rejected ideas of Thatcherism from yesteryear, presented as the hottest new thing since sliced bread. It's like they've rummaged through the attic of conservative ideology and pulled out the dusty old relics, hoping to pass them off as revolutionary. First, there's their economic agenda, which feels like a blast from the past. Reform UK wants us to believe that Thatcherism 2.0 is the answer to all our problems. They're all about cutting taxes for the wealthy, deregulation, and letting the free market run wild. It's as if they missed the memo that the world has moved on from the 80s, and we've learned a thing or two about the consequences of unchecked capitalism. Then there's particularly their emphasis on reforming the tax system. It's as if they want to tinker with the tax code, promising lower taxes, but we must ensure that these proposed tax cuts would genuinely benefit the economy rather than harm it. Reform UK's proposal for tax reform seems to be their golden ticket to economic prosperity. They advocate for restructuring the tax system, but the real question is whether these changes would be a well-timed symphony or a discordant cacophony. Lowering taxes is a seductive idea, like a siren's call to taxpayers' wallets. But we must be cautious. Will these tax cuts primarily benefit the wealthiest among us, exacerbating income inequality, or will they genuinely stimulate economic growth, creating opportunities for all? It's a bit like giving a car with no brakes to a speed demon. It might be exhilarating, but it could end in disaster. And let's not forget their obsession with deregulation. They want to strip away regulations like it's going out of style. It's as if they believe that, if we just let businesses do whatever they want, the invisible hand of the market will magically solve all our problems. But history has shown us that unregulated markets can lead to disaster. Also, Reform UK's fascination with changing the British electoral voting system. It's like they want to play a game of political roulette, but I'm with you on this one. I prefer our trusty first past the post FPTP system over proportional representation and pay. You see, the FPTP system might have its quirks, but it does have its merits. It generally leads to more stable governments, where one party typically holds a clear majority. We don't want to end up with a situation like in Germany, where you have a myriad of parties constantly bickering and forming complex coalitions. It's like watching a sitcom with two main characters and not enough punchlines. With proportional representation, you run the risk of weak governments and endless negotiations. It's as if they're trying to turn politics into a never-ending soap opera, with more plot twists than you can keep track of. Who needs that kind of drama in our already complex world? Reform UK is like trying to teach an old dog new tricks, but the dog just keeps barking the same old tune. They've taken those recycled Thatcherite policies, thrown on a shiny new coat of paint, and labeled it reform in the hope that we won't notice. The best part is that it seems even the folks representing Reform UK might not fully understand what these policies entail. It's like they've been handed a script and told to read it, but if you asked them to explain the details, they'd probably fumble faster than magician caught without their hat. It's a classic political sleight of hand, where the trick is to distract us with buzzwords and slogans while the substance remains hidden in the shadows. Reform sounds nice and all, but it's like packaging an old, dusty book with a shiny new cover and trying to sell it as a bestseller. But the world has moved on, and we need policies that address the challenges of today, not rehash of the past. So, let's keep our eyes open and our critical thinking caps on, and not fall for the illusion that yesterday's rejected ideas are today's solutions. As we wrap up this delightful excursion into the world of political illusions and name changes, let's remember that, while some things may be repackaged as reform, it's the substance that truly matters. So, when you encounter a party like Reform UK, claiming to have all the answers, while dressed in the tired attire of yesteryear, just remember, you can put a fancy hat on a cat, but it's still a cat. And you can call something reform, but it's the actual content that counts.